Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. I'm Mr. Forest, and today I'm bringing you a conversation with Xochitl Ashe. Xochitl is someone that Rada and I met at the Esalen. We did the Enthio Wheel, where they did that whole week about psilocybin as a medicine in all different forms and shapes. And Xochitl is a plant medicine woman who is currently living down in Mexico. She's fifth generation Peruvian medicine woman. And she's leading journeys and doing all sorts of advocacy and just beautiful work. And we got to know her even more because for the documentary we're working on, Music for Mushrooms, you can go to musicformushrooms.com. You'll see a landing page for that. More on that soon. But we went down there and got to engage in conversation, which was just magical, and we got to know each other better. And so when I was down there, she was talking about wanting to get her podcast going. And so when we went to some hot springs nearby, I was giving her all the tips I could about even just little technical stuff. And I said, I'll help you out. So she's getting the podcast up and rolling now. And I said, since we're having a conversation, it's kind of like we'll do a joint pod where it's sort of for my pod, for your pod. And this is her inaugural episode, hosted here as well on the 10 Laws Podcast. But in the show notes, if you want to click over, she's released her initial few episodes, and it's wonderful. So you can go over there and subscribe and dive into that world as well. And I know you are going to enjoy this conversation. I will be in Europe quite soon, God willing. And I'm going to be performing at the Dreamers Land Festival in Poland, which is August 4th through 6th. And then we will be in Dublin on August 12th and London on August 13th. So very much looking forward to that. Get your tickets now. All these are intimate shows, especially the venue shows, the seated shows in Dublin and London. I know it's August, but you might not know what's going on for you. But get a ticket, tell your friends. It takes a lot of work for us to get over there, and we're just really looking forward to connecting with everyone who's there. We'll be at the Ram Dass Retreat the 24th through 27th of August. That's in Boone, North Carolina. All that's at eastforest.org/tour. And I also want to say thanks to our Patreon, patreon.com/eastforest. That is the council on Patreon. It's a wonderful way to support the project, and we can go deeper. I can share things I can't share elsewhere, musically and otherwise. Check it out, patreon.com/eastforest. And this is an evergreen podcast, so I might have to take a little time off in the next couple months, or at least the episodes might slow down because we're doing some touring and I'm working on the documentary and we need to create a little bandwidth. But I also will be sharing some back catalog episodes you might have missed that are just as relevant today as they were before. So please check those out when we do highlight them. And just an invitation to go back in time at any point, scroll through all of these 260 plus episodes and see what might grab your eyes, ears, and hearts, and click download or save or share or listen. And it's just a way to honor all the beautiful time that all of our guests have given us over the years to come on the show. And lastly, just a little housekeeping note. Angel's Rest and Toad Lick and stuff, some of that stuff's been out of stock on the store, some of our perfume oils, but we're working on getting it all back in stock, trying to improve our systems so our inventory doesn't go down like that. But the pre-order for Burren, my album with Peter Broderick, as well as the new album Music for the Deck of the Titanic, those are on the Bandcamp store. We'll get them up on Shopify any minute, but you can pre-order both of those first pressings now and get it while the getting's good. I hope you're enjoying your summer. It's crazy out there. It's hot as just nuts out there, but this is what we do. We walk this walk together. We explore these conversations. We pick up the nuggets, and hopefully we move forward with grace and bravery and truth. So let's dive into this conversation with our friend Xochitl Ashe.
Begin. I just want to take this moment, my friend Krishna East Forest. So interesting why I am so emotional. This was a big dream for me.
I think this is the beautiful beginning. I think this should be the beginning right here. This is our beginning.
Oh,
Total vulnerability and truth and conversations around, stemming from that foundation. It's beautiful.
yeah. As much as I am such a teacher of vulnerability, there's always those little parts of me that have a hard time being vulnerable. But I'm really feeling so emotional because we did a ceremony where we put my grandmother's ashes into the ground yesterday. And so I called in the energy of Pachamama, Tonatzin, Chundafe. We did our rituals as a family. And so many things have happened prior to this. Somebody actually questioned, like, why would I call myself fifth generation medicine woman? It was a person that didn't quite understand that it's because it's such an honor for me to talk about my ancestors, because this work with plant medicines, this work of ancestral healing, the indigenous ways, even though today we see, like those, I call them like the insta shamans, those people that like go to Peru for 2 weeks. And
we call them Trustafarians. Yeah, that's Radha's term. Or no, what's the Tulumafarians or Tuluminatis? Tuluminatis. Yeah.
Yeah, and they like, and they, they come back, and it's so easy for them to be so visible, and like, I'll teach you how to do this and come and sit with this medicine, and like how much I know about these medicine ways. I just find that extremely dangerous on so many levels. But to get back to this moment, it's so important that I become a voice in this psychedelic ecosystem as an Indigenous person, as an Afro-Indigenous person, when there's been such a history of us not being able to practice our medicine. And then now that we are, it's, there's not a lot of us talking. And, like, I don't know of anybody that's Indigenous that has a podcast.
That's a good question. Yeah. You're a trailblazer.
That's talking about psychedelics. And I'm inviting more, right? Like, while it feels kind of scary and a big responsibility and good to be here, I'm inviting more. And if there are some that I haven't noticed, let me know about them. But I just want to thank you, my dear brother, East Forest.
Oh, please, thank you. Maybe I just want to speak a bit to what you're talking about. First off, whoever would question why you say fifth generation, to me, that's just noise. But I want to flip that around, actually. And, for myself, I don't know if my 5 generations back. My father actually got really into genealogy, and it's difficult. And even if you do find names and information, there's no real knowledge pathway there that's very conscious, let alone something like a practice such as medicine work. And let's just say that for millennia, humans have been engaging in introspective work, probably with plant medicines in all sorts of ways, and it was more commonplace. But there's very few people like that is being lost in the more recent generations. So in some ways, being like second generation would actually be more impressive. Or it's like, wow, you have a parent or a grandparent who's still passing this knowledge down and that's incredible these days. When I did a little work in the Amazon, it seemed like that was the end of the line with a lot of the older shamans because there's no one's picking it up really or really fully. And so I want to honor the fact that you have any lineage that's known and your father and to those grandparents and that you spoke very much about how it was a family affair, like that it was done as a family. And I'm just like, maybe I'm just looking at it from the outside, but I think that's just incredible and more rare and precious these days. That should be protected.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a really interesting conversation. Just because this was an individual that, and in many ways, this is such a good conversation, right? Because the reason why he wasn't questioning that I wasn't fifth generation. He was questioning like, like that sounds commercial. And I was like, what? And so you have to understand, that we as Indigenous people are still in the process of decolonizing.
Mm-hmm.
And to be, visible as an Indigenous person with the Indigenous wisdom, there are some Indigenous people that are not comfortable with us being out here and being visible and like talking about the ways because, there's a lot of trauma of being generous and sharing our ways and then not getting credit for it or, we shared the last time we spoke, the story of Maria Sabina, this Mazatec important medicine woman that really brought the knowledge of mushrooms in this way, right, to the Western world. And her house was burned, not by the white Westerners, but by her own community.
Mm-hmm.
Because she had done this. And then there's a really big wound. Whew. I had no idea that I had my little questions.
This is the way to do it. This is jazz. This is about music. Music's the same way. It's like what's arising. Ceremony's the same way, right?
Yeah.
It's like what's arising and being in service to that. I mean, I think too, like fifth generation sounds commercial. It's like, okay, let's say it does on one level. I think what's kind of so interesting and challenging about this moment we're in now is that you are also meeting the moment. Like if to bring the medicine to people, you have to work inside a system that is colonized, that is capitalistic. It's crazy. Like, I don't want to be on Instagram. I really don't. But I do choose to because I'm like, well, it's an advertising platform. It's one of the only ways I've been able to sell tickets is like let people know there's a show. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, man, that's a bummer. But I have to also weave. And I think you're doing the same thing. And I would much rather have you out there sharing and serving as opposed to saying I'm not going to because the system is too broken.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was a person that hasn't done that work. I had a lot of compassion. I didn't get defensive, It wasn't, like I said, he wasn't questioning, like he knows I am fifth generation. He was questioning like my visibility.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that wound of like, it's not even like, my white brothers and sisters like criticizing me, right? It's like my own people. But he's one of a very few. A lot of us are actually waking up in many ways to that we need to heal that wound, that it doesn't serve us anymore as Indigenous people to not be visible, because it is important for us to also have a part on how this goes. These
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
these are our this is our sacred ancestry, our incredible time and energy that we've spent generations and generations in really getting to know the plants, not only their healing physical properties, but how they connect us to spirit, our own, and the earth. And so if we're not here to see how that goes with the legalizations of these incredible medicines, these plant teachers, fungi teachers, ancestors, you know, you're gonna end up taking a microdose as if it was Tylenol one day, like, oh, my head hurts, without really connecting to the sacredness that this teacher is. So I just, as we starting my first podcast, welcome East Forest.
You've got to include that stuff earlier. I mean, but thank you. Thank you. That was the overture.
I just want to say I'm so grateful for your time and energy and presence. You really rose to the occasion when I asked and I said, can you mentor me? Can you be my podcast padrino?
I'll add that to the resume. That's a new one. Yeah.
And that means the world to me. Because, I was doing a lot of research on you, and for days listening to your incredible music, so that I can connect to your energy and really honor it here. And it's so beautiful that, we met because of also this incredible documentary that you're doing with mushrooms and music for mushrooms. And so I'm really excited to have you here because this wouldn't really be possible. I mean, it could have been, of course, the universe always makes this happen, whatever this is, our wish, our dream, our vision. But I'm really grateful for the folks that show up when you have a vision or a dream and they say, I am here, I will help you, and I will support you to make that happen. And I am like that too. And when you showed up like that, I was really floored because I know the time that it takes.
Well, it's my pleasure. And also, I mean, let's be honest too. I just spent the entire day with you filming in your home. You'd given me a lot of your time. It's also just like, of course I'll help you. It's just like, so it's what comes around goes around. It's just a circle of support and giving and conversations in different modalities. So I think this is great. We just have to you have to promise me, when is your date that your podcast is going to go live? Because we're going to share this hopefully on my podcast and everyone can hop over and hit subscribe because you're going to have some fantastic conversations.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going to tell you the date. I'm following your teachings, and you asked that I produce 5 before we launch the first. So
at least 3, yeah.
Or 3, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. I got some interviews. I actually have an interview after you. So I'm a really good student. Good. Exciting. Well, I am so happy that you're here, East Forest, and you are a person that is working with this incredible magical healing medicine, which is psilocybin, and it has been a huge influence on your path and on your music.
Yeah. When Ram Dass said that psilocybin started him on his spiritual path, and if you just stop for a second and think about that, I mean, probably a lot of people could say that, but Ram Dass, maybe there wouldn't be Ram Dass if he hadn't been given synthesized psilocybin that he took with Timothy Leary. And honestly, I could say the same thing. Like, I had a very breaking open experience when I was 19. And I've basically, ever since then, it started me on a path. It showed me, it allowed me to feel a truth that I knew in my heart was true, but I needed strong medicine like that to break through the the depression and the anxiety and the malaise and the story I'd grown up with, that like, no, the world is what you see and it's rational and you pay your taxes and you get a job, and and I was really depressed about that because my heart told me more. So absolutely, I owe so much to the mushrooms, and so much more since then. But that was what started everything.
So one of the questions when I was thinking of like, oh, how do I want to do this podcast? Like, it's a conversation. What questions do I want to ask? And I went into meditation and I thought, oh, I have a question I want to ask. But now I'm remembering, can we open sacred space? Because I want this to be really in alignment. Like everything I do, that has like any time that I speak on this beautiful medicine that we both work with, I honor it so much that even as we're about to go into podcast mode, like I want to honor it so it could also be here with us, so that the spirit is also part of this podcast. Because psilocybin, Teonanacatl, the mushroom spirit, is my biggest ally and best friend and family and ancestor. And so I want to invite this energy so that it could be present and be part of our team. How you feel about that?
Thank you. Yeah, I
Beautiful.
thank you for doing that. Absolutely.
Beautiful. So let's just, and if you're out there listening to this, you can actually just follow my voice and also open the sacred space for yourself. So when you're listening, you also listen to the spirit of the medicine, sacred Teonanacatl. Let's take a deep breath together. Tonatsin, Pachamama, Chundafe, Divine Mother Earth, as we open our sacred space today for this new podcast with my beautiful brother, East Forest, we call upon his whole lineage to be present, the well ancestors, and my whole lineage to be present, our well ancestors. And we call upon you to ground us in your beauty, in your love, in your magic. We also call the great spirit of Teonanacatl, the mushroom ancestor, our sacred teacher, ally, friend. Thank you for being here with us as we speak about you. May we represent you to the best of our abilities and represent the healing, the love, the magic that you have for us. Thank you, Tonatsin Pachamama Chundafe, for sacred water, food, air, shelter. Thank you for always giving us everything, all the resources we need for our path. Thank you for all the beings, the animals, the plants, the insects, all our relations. Keep them safe, keep them healthy, keep them thriving. Calling in the energy of the sun, Taita Inti Tonatiu, to shine upon our podcast so that all the things that are the most healing, the most powerful for people that are hearing, may we speak on them. May we be a beacon of your sunshine through our work here on earth. Calling in all the well ancestors, the teachers, the guides, the protectors. Thank you for being here. Thank you, because when we call upon you, you are always here, guiding us, loving us, and reminding us that we are never alone. And together we are going to say a word that the Mexica used. It's a Nahuatl, and it means the divine feminine and masculine in all things. Ometeo. So at 3, we say Ometeo together. Ometeo. Ooh, that was so good. I feel ready to go.
I love it.
Yeah. So going back, there was a question that came through when I was in prayer meditation about our meeting today. And, I thought of all the things I could ask you. The first question I wanted to be in conversation about is, what is one thing that you find, like, if you can best communicate it, because I know it's not always one thing, but what is one thing that this beautiful being, the mushroom spirit, has taught you on your path?
Ooh. If I had to try and sum it up, it's about trust, or about there's in some ways nothing to do, yet everything that is being done is important and sacred and valuable, but that it's all good in a sense. And it like gives me a glimpse into the mystery that's really important for me. It's the unspeakable. I think that's why I like music so much. And I like essentially singing to the mushrooms through music, because is there a better way? The only 2 ways I could think would be music or other forms of art, and silence. Like just presence is a way of honoring that energy, and art, creativity, is a way of celebrating that energy. It's a kind of bridge to different dimensions. And that is something I've realized there's no destination. Like it's just a continual celebration of song, of spirit. And sometimes I'll forget that, like for me, it's all about the music, because the music is a way of getting us to remember these things, to feel it, to not just think about it. And for me, I'm always in my head, so it's like to feel it. And when I can tap into that energy when working with the mushrooms directly, it's just like this overwhelming feeling of that. I call it an infinite feeling, but some people might call it love or God, or it's the ineffable, but it's an overwhelming feeling of isness and all that is, and remembrance. That's so important to feel it, because that's a cellular memory I carry when I'm not in an altered state of consciousness, and it's very alive for me at all times. And so in many ways, I feel that since I had that first experience when I was 19, I have had other experiences with mushrooms for sure since then, but kind of less and less over the last few years, and it feels no less alive in my life. It transcends time. It's just what is. And it's a relationship that I'm very grateful for, and it feels like it guides me to something. But other psychedelic experiences, like mushrooms, are definitely my OG ally. But I recently have had a lot of work in ketamine with my partner Rada as a ketamine therapist in a clinic. So I had access, and I had actually a lot of judgment about ketamine. I thought, well, whatever. And I've had some of the deepest experiences I've had ever in there. And I just start to wonder, like, if all is all that is, and we have all these different ways of accessing, tuning our antenna, essentially, even from breath work, oxygen, to various plants and mushrooms, it just makes me think like all of this is within us. It's just all that is. We're just sort of like opening ourselves to the capacity of it in different ways. And there's probably a reason why if we turned it all on at once, we'd probably just explode into bliss. You just couldn't handle it in this mechanism, this dimensional human bodysuit. We're meant to experience exactly what we're experiencing, and we can find ways and allies to shoot into like, wow, this is so much, but there's infinite more. And so a lot of times I think I've just been realizing that the curriculum on this campus Earth is right here, and it seems like, as Ram Dass would say, I meant to, let's try taking the curriculum, and it becomes richer in that way. Thank God we have things like mushrooms to be able to access these other spaces, because at least for me, especially today, with all the noise and techno everything, I don't know if I would have made it. If I really don't. So I'm very grateful.
I love that you touch on that, because it's true. Like everything is within. We have the capacity to connect with that consciousness through breath. It doesn't have to be through any plant medicine. And at the same time, how amazing. I feel like that this plant medicine is kind of like an arm of support, like a hand that just like comes out, and it's like, okay, you went to do a 10-day Vipassana retreat. You came back and you were all good for a year, and then all of a sudden you forgot about it, right? And it's like, oh. And then the arm of the plant spirit comes, and it's like, hey, somebody tells you, you want to go to a mushroom ceremony, and you're like, okay. And then you remember, right, during the mushroom ceremony, like, oh, yeah, like I had this a year ago through Vipassana meditation. And, the mushroom spirit is telling me, like, the lesson is practice. Like, the lesson isn't like, take more of me, but the lesson is, it's about consistency and practice. And then it's like, oh, so it's like you're here to remind me that I can heal myself. Like, that I don't even need you, right? Like, what a teacher. And I really like love that about the plants, because they're like, we're here fully in support, but you don't need us. But we're here when you do. And that's incredible, I think.
It's a big deal to absolve yourself of a destination or like enlightenment. I mean, what if you tried that on a different way and thought like, well, enlightenment is your base being state. There's actually no arrival to it. It's actually more just remembering or sloughing off layers. And like you said, to think that the walk is the point. Like, in that sense, we're always moving through time, always in a new place in every moment with every breath. Quite literally, as we go through the cosmos, we're literally just moving through space, new space every moment. And there will be ups and downs, just as there's an in-breath and an out-breath. And that is the point. That is the grist for the mill, so that there's something to do. There's something to push against, so that we can learn, so that we can have the joys. The joys come from the sorrows. And in that way, forgetting is the engine of remembering. And they serve each other. It's not like, oh, man, I did the Vipassana and now I'm back here and being petty. It's like, oh, yeah, and that is painful and it sucks, but it's like, now you can continue with the cycle. And that might be difficult to want to even accept, but it seems to be the playing field, right? It's like, that's incarnation. And the blessing is that within that, we can have these sort of agape experiences of sisterly, brotherly love, human love, cosmic connection, animal, plant, nature. I mean, all of that's in there too. Art, creativity, humor. I mean, I've always said this, But if any of us were to design, like, let's make a human existence or whatever, whatever this is, 3D existence. It could not be more complex. Of course, it would be the richest. It would have everything, and it does. It's the horrors, the profane, the sacred, everything. So it seems like it's right in front of us in a lot of ways. It's like, why wouldn't it be just like this?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I feel like we're done. Here's everything, you guys. We just resolved the meaning of life.
That is, though, I think what I feel often in stronger mushroom experiences. Like, you feel a sense of law. It's like I sense the pain and everything that's happened and the traumas, and I just sense all of it, and it is just messy and intense and incredible. You just kind of, maybe you're seeing just infinite faces and the history and like, wow. But in that law, it's not positive or negative. It's more like, this is just causal relationships of choices and energy, karma, if you want to call it that way. And it's not even a judgment. It's a kind of balancing, like wind going from high pressure to low pressure. It is the nature of what's happening. And therefore, the choices you make do matter. They are causal. Even internally, that inner work radiates outward in this infinite form. And so you're not in a speck that doesn't matter. Quite the opposite. You're a part of a weaving and a web that's integral to a continual rebalancing that could find equilibrium. And maybe it does at times, but it's just sort of this art piece that we're all part of. We're all like have a paintbrush in our hand. And so that can be a lot to feel and handle, but it also on some level, I know I'm dancing around here, but that's because I'm kind of just remembering it in real time.
Yeah. I like, as you're talking about it, I mean, and also, it's also the prayer. Like, I feel like I'm in it with you.
It's like you can't fall. I have a song called "Can't Fall Out of Love," but it came from a ketamine experience. But it's the same energy with mushrooms or anything else, and it's this idea that all that stuff I just spoke of, it feels like it's inside this container that is the Great Mother's arm, and you can't be outside of that. There is no way. So all that is happening is inside love. You can't literally fall outside of love. You can't fall out of love, and that's the feeling I have over and over again. And my sense after realizing that is thank God. Like that's grace. Because if we didn't have that, it would truly then be horror, chaos. It's really, we're just sinking into horror. But it's not. It's just, nope, I got you. Every time I'm like right on the edge and I'm like scared, whether it's am I dying, and I fall through that barrier, I'm always caught by all that is, and all that is the grace of the infinite mystery of like, it's love. That's the lesson, and it's me just coming back with my hands and my head bowed, being thank you for holding me amidst my mistakes, my petty grievances, my forgetfulness, my humanity. And I have nothing to say but thank God, and truly thank God that.
Yeah. I hear that so clearly because all of my teachings are about that, about coming back to the knowing that there will always be that loving arm that's going to hold you, even when you think like, oh no. Yeah. Like beyond how you said, beyond the mystery. And you're like, I'm like, what? I'm going to fall. And it's like, nope, right here. And, in our tradition, that's the earth. That's the earth, divine mother spirit. And I really so connect to that. And I love that this medicine that we work with, and all, like, really, truly, like all the different plant medicines, their ancient code is to remind you of that, to remind you that
Yeah.
you're always held.
That's it.
And that it's like, remember, like, just remember, I mean, I do believe in like not just Mother Earth, like, there's Mother Earth, there's like the universe, the galaxies, like yeah, like you said, like if we could even, like, we can't even name it because we would explode in the physical form that we have now. But the earth for us is like the first mother, that when we land here, we are like, oh, when we forget, right? What, like, as spirits coming into birth, we forget that we are in this incredible journey of spirit, and we come here, and then life happens, and it's like, wait, but let's remember again that yes, life happens, but there's this like incredible being of pure love that gives you everything you need for your journey, right? Just like when I forget, it's like, oh, I just need to breathe. Like there's the abundance. There's like, you're so provided for. You are so provided for always. And yet, right, it's that forget, remember, forget, remember. And what I have found is that a lot of our healing has really been shown that it has to do with like healing our generations, so that we can really be here on earth with such clarity and sovereignty from all of that our our ancestors have lived through, so that you could just like be here. Imagine like, and that's what your music gives to me, is that like when I listen to your music, I mean, and I went through all of your music, right?
Oh my God, that must have taken a long time.
You have a lot of music, by the way, which is incredible, because some of your tracks are a journey itself. They're like 25 minutes.
Yeah, there's an album that's 5 hours. Yeah.
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 And, your music takes me there to this place of, oh, yeah, it's trust. And so I'm just bringing it back because that was the question, is like, the first thing you said is like, what I learned was trust. And your music like is so infused with that. Like I can just sit and hear that, like, oh yeah, like for this moment I can just trust. And trust is a big one, because in many ways it's also surrender.
Absolutely.
Right. Like I often say, like, trust and surrender are Siamese twin sisters, connected. And so, yeah, your music is like, I just sat, I heard it in different, on the rooftop, watching the sunset. I listened to it while I was microdosing, and I was like, woo, okay. And then I even remembered, Shyla Ray, who just interviewed you and is a really good sister of mine. She said the same thing. She's like, I didn't even know what album was playing, but when I heard your music, I just like felt like, oh, this is mushroom music. And so I just want to acknowledge you that you're really connected to this spirit, and you feel it in your music, and you feel the trust. So thank you.
Well, I'm the lucky one that the mushrooms have graced me with speaking through in that way. I mean, my process is when I'm making music, rehearsing music, playing music, is to try and get in touch with that feeling, that infinite feeling of hope and remembering, and then play music that makes me feel that way. And that is as simple as, I am a neurotic human with a lot of problems, and I need a lot of medicine to remember. And what's so, I don't know if ironic's the right word, but like my own like shortcomings as a human is what allows me to have to keep diving into that space. And then basically by sharing that and recording what's helping me, it can help others because we're all in different degrees going through the same predicament of like, how do I make sense of all this? There's so much going on. Like, I need to remember. And there's so many ways to, that's practice. That's a kind of practice. But that's just what's been working for me. And I have nothing but gratitude that can become something that I can do every day because I need to do it every day. So it actually gives me an excuse to do it every day, you know? And thank God. And it can be fun. It can be really hard. I mean, just this last week, boy, did I forget. I was in a real tailspin of stress about very worldly things. That's what always gets me is feeling like I have to protect myself or that, like, I think it's how I grew up with my father. And that can be that kind of negative worrying can become a bit of a snowball or a big snowball. And once you're in it, it's very difficult to see outside that or to get back in touch with that larger energies. And I had to do some journey work the other night at Radha, my partner's encouragement, and it made me turn the corner. It made me help me remember, get perspective again, bring the temperature way down. Those things didn't go away, but it's when that trust comes back. I'm like, well, yeah, that is stressful, but I also can add in this huge element of like, but I trust that this is all moving and will take care of itself, and there's a process here, and I'm okay. It's not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And we all need that more and more, a kind of fortitude of support as the world continues to collapse and transform.
That's so true. And I'm so grateful for, we have these medicines, right? We have so many practices. It's just a matter of us it does take like a humility also. Like, I too had like a pretty intense week. It must be something also in the planets.
I blame the planets.
Yeah, let's blame the planets, right? It's them. It's not us.
Me.
And and I have mentors, and I do therapy too. One of the things that I'm really committed is that if you're going to do any work for anyone else, like of support, of holding space, of helping people grow, like, this kind of also goes into like, vet your medicine people, right? Like, make sure that these people are also, maybe if they're indigenous medicine people not living in the Western world, like make sure that they're like having a counsel, that they can be counseled that as well. Mm-hmm. Because like, if I don't do my work, there's no way I can, hold the ceremonies that I hold. So yeah, it was so great. I had a therapy session. Like, I made it, the next day after this event with a family member. And it just, I got through it, and it was just, and then I also, microdosed and did my own ceremony, and I got through it like something that would have stayed with me maybe for 6 months, a year, who knows, maybe if I wasn't in the practice, like really doing my work, that could have stayed with me for years. And I'm so grateful that we have these practices and these ways that are here to support us, because you're right, like the earth is going through a great shift. Like, that's undeniable. You don't have to be somebody that is connected spiritually to the earth to know that these are some powerful shifting times. And like I think our job is to stay as grounded as possible. And like, whenever the earth shakes, like, learn to dance, right? Like, okay, it's shaking. I could either like fall on the floor, or I can get grounded and learn to dance. So you spoke about your father, and a lot of my work with psilocybin and with these traditional indigenous ceremonies is really supporting others in healing their ancestral trauma or generational trauma.
Mm.
And this medicine has been so powerful for that, quite incredible. People, that had been trying to do this work with therapy, which I still think is amazing, right? But it's like they had tried with like many different ways, and then they did it with this medicine, and they were able to really get to the bottom. Well, I don't know if the bottom of it, but the source.
Yes.
Sometimes the source is not just like one generation, like your father, right? But like the beautiful thing about this medicine is that it allows you to really see, like, oh no, this is like boop, 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 boop. I mean, sometimes we've seen 14 generations, right? Or 3 generations. And it's really beautiful when people get it, and then they have the history where they can confirm it. But even when you don't confirm it, it's not even about that. It's about like allowing yourself to heal it. And the answer to knowing, like, did I heal that really, truly, or at least did it bring enough awareness so I can start on the journey, is like you really do notice significant shifts in your life. Places where you were blocked, all of a sudden you're not blocked there, right? So maybe not with your father, or maybe with some other family member or generational burden that you might have explored. Have you done some of that work, or have you gotten the support with medicine, with plant medicine, to see some of that and heal some of that? Before we continue with the rest of this episode, I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this podcast. Teona Center Retreats, the only woman and Indigenous-owned psilocybin retreat space. Teona Center offers legal and safe opportunities to experience the healing power of Teonanacatl, or sacred mushrooms. Retreats are held in beautiful San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, a city whose color, charm, and magic deeply support participants on their healing journeys. And as a thank you for being our listener, Teona Center would like to offer all Sacred Psychedelic listeners $150 off your next psilocybin retreat. Make sure to visit the show notes to learn how you can join Teona's next psilocybin experience.
Let me ask you a question to answer that. I've felt, and let me know if you feel this is true, or you can add some color to it, that if you kind of viewed like a tip of an iceberg coming out of the ocean is us alive, incarnate, and below the water is this massive iceberg, like a pyramid, and that is all of our ancestral tree, and that there's something really important and sacred about being alive. And one of the reasons is, in this space, the choices we make, actually, like the healing of our own traumas, all the things we do reverberate, and they start to heal for the people who are not incarnate. So it's a kind of like service backwards in time. And I also oddly feel that there's this other invisible pyramid flipped on top that is into the future. And in that way, there's a powerful preciousness to being alive, because, oh, you're in the space where you can start to affect all these other things from before and to come. Is that something you found is there's any other people who share that feeling, or is that an Indigenous perspective?
Yeah, well, it's definitely an Indigenous perspective. We say 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. But I really feel the number 7 is more to say, like, that's how long we will remember, and we will try to keep a record at this point.
Right.
But I mean, we also know that it's beyond 7 generations forward or past. Mm-hmm. And yeah, what I think is important about that is that we're not only inheriting the burdens, but we are also inheriting the incredible blessings. And I see it as if we were, there was a bank account that had $100 million. And the moment you do work around healing those burdens that you may be carrying, it's like somebody gives you a account number and you go to the bank and then you find out that there's like $100 million in it that your ancestors have deposited for you of blessings. Right. And
I'm a trustafarian of blessings.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
Good news.
How awesome if it was like trustafarian, because like they called you trustafarian because you're so trusting of the universe.
Yeah. I mean, who knows, right? That like that movie Soul, was that what it's called? The Disney one, I think it was. Or,
yeah.
I'm sorry, whoever made it. I thought it was incredible, and I love that the guy spinning the sign was the basically the enlightened dude in the flow. It's like, and we look at sometimes people and we're like, oh, that's just some kid. He's probably caffeinated and high, just spinning a sign. It's like, what if? What if? We never know, where people are at and who's what, and so of course we're in jest, but it's like the dances we do and the roles we play for each other. We all have the capacity for the total highs and the lows. And I think it doesn't escape anyone. We feel it all at one point or another.
Yeah, for sure. And so is there one story that you'd like to share about something that the medicine helped you heal within your lineage?
Well, do you feel like we, as a being or a person, you sort of have a chief goal or a chief obstacle in a way? Or let's just try that on for a second. And so, like, for me, if I had a chief obstacle, it'd be impatience. And that absolutely feels like something I've inherited. And so what are the symptoms of that? It can be worry or anxiety, or always pushing, trying to make things go faster, which just brings me basically various forms of pain. But I keep doing it. And I'm still working with this medicine big time. And the medicine, when I've worked with plant medicines, it teaches me, it shows me this in a way. So it's not changing my behavior. They're these great illuminators. It's just like I see it. I'm like, oh, there it is. Right. And it shows me maybe alternatives, or allows me to embody what other things might feel like. And then I get to come back and walk my walk more and try things. And I guess if you want a concrete example, I can just speak about right now.
Yeah,
I'm
I love that.
This last week was hard because I've gone through a lot of changes with my work, and my personal life are so intertwined because I don't know, there's just not much difference. And with COVID and coming out of that, it was pretty seismic shifts in the music industry. And then, so just been a lot of change, and a lot of people I've been working with that have come and gone that you thought would be like long-term relationships. And that's always been sad and stressful. And I think I had an idea in my head in my youth, like, of where you want to be or what you want to do. And on one level, it's completely different than what I thought. And on another level, it's like things started to happen in a way after 20 years where it's like, wow, some of those things that I've been pushing for and moving towards, I actually can almost touch them. I can see some of them. I can feel some of them. But on the other hand, I'm so stressed out or anxious that I don't even know if I want any of this anymore. Like, I don't know if I can handle it. My humanity feels like it's collapsing under the weight of everything. And it feels like the energy is pushing in a way. It's like just pushing forward. And I just feel confused on that way. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do sometimes, a lot of the times. And yet you have this knowing inside. It's more about the how, not the why. It's the how. And we're meeting a moment of a world that's so dynamic. And I mean, this does circle back to what we talked about at the beginning. Like, what was the word? Like, it looked commercial, or it looked.
Oh yeah.
I feel the same
Yeah.
thing. What was the term? Or it was
He
like
said he was like, why use five generations? Like it's so commercial.
commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Like
and
sell out, basically.
yeah, and
Like
like
don't sell yourself out. And I
no
was
one
like,
wants to be that way, right? And then, but you also we have ambition, and that's part of my lineage too, and that actually then gives me the fire so that I even want to do any of it, and so it all works together.
yeah.
And I have to honor that. It's like even my anxiety or how I grew up with my parents serves my drive to find an alternative and do the music. I mean, it's all a beautiful masterpiece of art, all of our lives together. And so the medicine has helped me to trust, but when I get in these moments of confusion, I have to learn how to loosen the grip. And that can be hard to do when
Yeah.
there's a story in your mind that says like, yeah, but my discernment or my hard work or my whatever, maybe my stress is what got me here in a way. But as you get older, for myself, that story starts to break down and you start to see more of the back nine versus the front nine. And you're thinking, okay, there's an end to this. How do I want to be through this next period? It's not going to go on forever. Whether, you start to think about legacy or you start to think about, because, at the end of the day, none of that really matters. None of it. It's like, what really matters is like the presence and love and forgiveness I can bring to others and myself, my partner, to Radha, to my family. That's what really matters to me. The kind of compassion I can bring to myself doing this kind of work. There's no destination. In some ways, it's like, what does it matter which rung of the ladder? Because it's all just another rung. And so it's just zoom out. It's like wherever you are, there's always going to be more in front of you and less in back. It's always going to, no matter where you are. So that's a struggle. And so the medicine has been helping me over the years work with that, because I know if I didn't have any perspective on that, it would be nothing but stress and pure drive. But I also don't think I would have even made it this far, because before the medicine work, my artistic pursuits were not that interesting. They were pandering. Like it was all about what will work in a sense, like what kind of art do people want to see or hear? And that's just not interesting to see or hear. And then once I started making music that I needed to hear, and it's like, I guess it doesn't matter if it gets sold or if anyone hears it. Oh, big surprise. Now it's actually interesting to listen to. And other people are like, I want to hear that. I need to hear that too, because it's a common thread. So in essence, like the motivator of the mushrooms being like your North Star, I'm sure has been everything as far as how it's driven creativity. So, I mean, that's not really one story. It's a bit of a word salad, but just painting a picture of like where things are at right now.
Well, it's quite amazing that you speak on that, because a lot of my, not just week, but month has been contemplating, I call it like the expansion, contemplating the expansion of like, wow, like I've prayed for this for so long and here it is, but I am feeling burnt out.
Same thing. Same thing. Yeah. It's like, how do I want to do this? Yeah.
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 And I have to say that there is some magic to that, right? Because even though we can explain it in the bigger terms, like kind of cosmic terms of like, well, this is just the expansion, contraction. There's also like, remember to play. Remember to play. Remember to play. And oh, wow.
That was actually the message for my journey 2 nights ago. Like, if I had to sum it up, it was like it's all about the music and it's called playing for a reason. Like that's what all of this is about. All of it is to support that, and like just you're forgetting that the thing. I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get so wrapped up in the details, you know.
And I would think, and you can tell me if you know what your thoughts on this are. But I think that both of our work actually has that like connecting string that's part of this big weave. But with my work, it's really about like doing all this ancestral work, releasing all that has been a burden, and then coming back to remember that we are here to play.
I don't know why that gives me a sense of disappointment. I think there's a part of my rational mind that's like, no, but it's about success and work, and I was right. But in honesty, like the last time I felt that sense of play and total purity, I was age 5. And I did this darkness retreat like a month ago or so, maybe a little more. And it was hard, but it allowed me to go back in time. I had a lot of time to just sort of go through these journeys of memory and remember, like, well, when was the last, when? It just kept going backwards and backwards. It's like, oh, I was okay, I was 5. After that, I kind of was broken, where I was like, no, you have to succeed in this system. You have to go to school. You have to get approval, and off to the races we go. But boy, was it an amazing, amazing feeling to only be in that space of present play.
Yeah.
Amazing feeling. Not even knowing another feeling. Not even a meta awareness that like, oh, I have to remember that thing or go back to it. It's like, no, it's only this. And that is what being alive is and was then. It still is now. I just have to have to remember or provide practice or consciously make space for it. But it's very right what you're saying. It feels right to me.
Well, and in many ways, you know, like when I first said, you know, your music is infused with like the feeling that just comes like trust. But like what's trust? Like that's the other, you know, the other sister of trust is safety.
Mm. Mm.
Right. And while really no one can provide a space of safety unless you feel safe within and yourself. Even the attempt of providing a safe space, I feel is like such a deep way that we can love someone.
Mm.
And so your music makes me feel trust, but also makes me remember like I am safe in this, you know, beautiful dark womb that we are like dancing in on all kinds of levels.
Well, I want the music to be an echo, a direct echo of that feeling of safety and trust that we can feel from the universe. And, you know, so I spoke about how the process of making it helps me, but my outward desire with it and sort of mission or goal was that I really want to see if I can make music, record it, put it out there in the world. It gets digitized into these fractal forms as music and everything is now. And then that can be used as a guide, and that same echo can reverberate to other people without me now even being involved forever and guide them through those deep inner experiences so they can remember. It's just, can I please be a small prism, you know, a piece of glass or something, just a little speaker that just is, the universe is passing through like it is all of us. But I wanted to think like, can we expand these experiences with technology? Essentially, music is a technology, Spotify, whatever. I think we can. I think music is an incredibly powerful guide to the psychedelic experience, if not the primary guide. And the second one I'd put right there with it is ceremony container, which is often a human being helping with that, but, you know, ritual. You put those two together, with your own intention walking into it, you're 95% there, if not more. And so creating a kind of music that can work in a contemporary landscape and speak to people who maybe don't have a background with this kind of work, and those who do, but for all the people who are curious, and giving them that sense of safety inside the experience. They need a kind of guide, and it's like, what better way than music that you can just hit play? It doesn't really cost you much, and it'll take you from start to finish and hold you while that medicine is working through you. I think that's incredibly important these days.
Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for hearing the call and making it happen. Because as I was saying, like, just to circle it back, right? Trust creates a space of safety. And when you feel safe, you can really play.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
That's a great reminder for me. I'm writing something down here because, like, I try to, like, pick apart why I feel anxiety, right? And it's like, okay, if I can ask people who I'm working with, it's like, when we're making each other feel safe, if that's sort of like your goal in a way, then we know then we can play.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
And I can forget the ingredients of the soup in a way. It's like, I just want it to taste savory. It's like, okay, that's great. So what do we put in it?
Yeah. So there's been, like, incredible research about this. But for me, it was just so simple. Like, that when children are recovering from trauma, they play. But when they're still very much deep in the trauma, they have a really hard time. Even if other children are trying to get them to play, they won't play. And so when a child starts feeling safe, they can play. And I'm taking notes too.
I'm literally taking notes, right?
Yeah. And I always thought, like, I'd love this podcast to also offer some practical tools so that when folks listen, they can get medicine that then they can apply. And so I think right here, this is such deep medicine, which is that if you are not playing enough, or not enough, that's not the right word, but if you don't feel like you have spaces of play, and you're mostly in spaces of anxiety or depression, check in to your safety. Like, are you hanging out with people that are safe, meaning that they're honoring your greatest self and honoring your path? Are you living in a safe space? Are you, there's a lot of things we cannot control about safety, but there's things that we can. And so the practice then for myself, and one that I'm sharing for all of us, is like, where are the places that we have control of that can provide us healthy safety, right? Not like, I'm going to keep myself safe and therefore I'm going to shelter and not go outside and play, but more like, what are my needs that need to be met for me to feel safe in the space right now?
Yeah.
So that I can play. And maybe it could even be a check-in with ourselves, right? Like, for me, to be totally vulnerable, it's like, yes, I pray because I bring in the spirit, but I pray when I open sacred space, even for this podcast, because if any of my energy is like, all like over here and not really centered and grounded, when I pray, it's just like, it brings me back. So I do it for myself, not just, right? Like, what a great tool. But yeah, you have so much beauty that you've created. I mean, I invite all of our listeners to just go through incredible, discography. Is that what it's called?
That is it.
Yay!
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, it's been a long time. So, I mean, I've, been producing records for a long time. So there's a lot of work, but also I think there's there's a fair bit of diversity in there. So I mean, if you drop the needle randomly, you might hear some different things, and anything from, like, I have records like the music from Mushrooms album that is designed to guide a journey, and it was recorded in a journey, and it was improvised, to the Ram Dass album that's was recorded in a studio. It was more like you're writing songs. It's thoughtful. There's guest artists. There's, of course, Ram Dass. And those are different flavors to me. But the glue that holds it together, I often find, is that sense of wanting to remind myself and others of that hope and that trust. And so I think that's within, as a through line, the different music.
And we met because of our friend in common, Dream, and she connected us. But really, when we really connected was when you came here to San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, to interview me, because you're working on an incredible documentary.
Yeah, no, I haven't really talked about it much. It's not a secret, but it's just been a process for over the last year. We're getting very close to, I don't know, making more of a public presence, sort of launching, like, okay, this project is getting out there in the world, but we still have a ways to go with post-production. But you were one of the last planned interviews. We'll probably have to do a few more. We just don't know what they are yet. You won't know until you start to see it put together. And it was so fun. I'm trying to think if you're the only international one. Perhaps that was in person. It was great, though. I mean, it's wonderful if you'd open up your home and get to spend that time and come down to San Miguel. And I had a really powerful conversation with you. And I'm feeling really hopeful that that's going to be sort of this cornerstone way of launching the story. Because it's ultimately a story about music and mushrooms and ceremony and the role that plays in transformation, which is a lot of what we're talking about today, really, right? And I'm trying to tell that story as it's an active story of my own investigation, and then how I'm trying to bring that into the world in various public ways, and the challenges of that, and really the questions that come up as we're in this process as a people. And it's like, look, a lot of this hasn't been done yet. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Or is this safe? Or will this help? And in that, telling that story, at least my goal at this point is that would hopefully inspire some people who watch it to go on their own journey in their own way. Because there isn't one way, right? And there isn't one answer, but it's more about inspiration and doors opening for people to say, I think maybe I actually could do that thing, or that thing might work for me. So it's a process.
Well, I'm really grateful that you reached out, because, you are a person that has been committed to making sure that you do this in right relationship with the medicine, with yourself, also respecting Indigenous ways with the medicine. And I really appreciated that you wanted to bring an Indigenous perspective of how to connect to this medicine into your documentary. And I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I would like to do more. But like you said, it's actually strangely not as easy to amplify those voices. And you're a rare bird in that, one, we met, and two, you have this lineage, and three, you're public about it, and four, I really love that you're a woman. Shall I say you identify as a woman? I never quite know how to say it.
Yes, I identify. Sorry. She, her.
Yes,
all good.
And it's just a perfect alignment. As like, oh, I'm so happy you're up for it, because it's like there's so many things in that. As like all of those things I want to amplify, and it is very, very important to include. You're right, to include that in this story, because it's part of the greater story. And it's not just like, what's the science behind this, or what's happening right now. It's like, well, we got to have a broader story than that, for sure. And, my background, it was 2008 when I started doing this music for myself, and a friend of mine named Lewis pushed me into doing ceremonies for people. It wasn't my plan, or I didn't think like I'm gonna be a shaman. I definitely don't call myself a shaman. But my point is, like, back then, there really wasn't a lot of stuff happening out there. It was still very like not cool, and there was maybe one or two websites, and they couldn't even get advertisers because you're like, oh God, you're talking about psychedelics. Ugh, like, you guys are crazy. Like, it was not a cool thing. And so it wasn't that I wasn't seeking out like indigenous wisdom or help. I honestly didn't, there just wasn't much that I knew what to do. And I did go to a lot of indigenous ceremonies. Actually, all of my ceremonial work was through indigenous, very like pure work, whether it was Amazonian shamans in ayahuasca, to Lakota sweat lodges, to San Pedro in the Andes with our dear friend Cucho. But with mushrooms, at least, I didn't know where to go or what to do. And so I just started kind of making music for myself. But I would learn as much as I could through those ceremonies. And the Lakota Sweat Lodge was amazing because that was in Oregon where I was living. And I did it 2 or 3 times. And the guy who was running it, he called me up. We kind of became friends. And he says, hey, I don't normally do this, but my person who tends the fire can't come tomorrow, and I don't know, I have this intuition, maybe we should do this together. And I ended up tending fire for a little bit for him, which is this amazing experience to like
Huge honor.
be on the outside and get to just learn and ask questions. And like you talked about your direct experience with the plant medicines being the real teacher and like just doing the work in that way versus, and I couldn't agree more. Like, if I could say, if anything has taught me, it's just working with the mushrooms, especially more than my own journeys, but is working with them to be in service with other people. It's taught me so much, so much. And so I guess I'm grateful that I had all those years of doing that. But I also, there is a little bit of me that feels guilty, or like, oh, I didn't go to there wasn't a school for this, or I didn't go train in wherever for 10 years. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I just started doing things, and here I am. But so it's all just sort of real world working with folks and myself. But at the end of the day, there's many roads to Rome, and there's plenty more to learn. And I think we're all just, like you said, if we can come with humility and the notion of we're still students, it's like, you're just doing your best to be in service to everyone and yourself and the universe and the earth. That's all we can do. So you share what you have to share.
Yeah. And with that, wow, what an incredible conversation.
Yeah, thanks. This is going to be a great podcast. I can't wait to hear all your other guests.
Thank you so much. So you have a new album that just came out.
Yeah, I have one called Burren with my dear friend Peter Broderick, and we recorded it in Ireland, and it was all done in 1 week. And it's just,
wow,
we microdosed mushrooms that he foraged from the land outside every day.
Wow.
And I always say to people, it's like, I have never had an experience where in 1 week an entire album comes out and every song we recorded appears on the album in the order it was recorded. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just weird. We assumed like, yeah, we'll record stuff, some stuff we won't use, whatever. But when it was all done, we're like, I think we're going to use everything. I actually don't think we should reorder it. Like, it just happened. And I remember saying like, I don't know how that happened. And then I'm like, well, okay, it's probably had something to do with the microdosing and the mushrooms working through us. Because we asked them to. We said, yes, please land, this beautiful land we were around, this Irish countryside, this Burren mountain. Please, mushrooms land, speak through us. And boy, did it. So check that album out.
Well, congratulations. And is there, I'm going to have all the links, of course, so that all my beautiful community can check your incredible music out. But is there anything you would like to share before we close today?
Just to keep walking, and like when we start to feel really negative or down and alone, as I did the last few days, to find whatever it is that can remind you, whether it's a good friend or counsel or nature or music or your own creativity or whatever it is, lean in, because we can't fall out of love in the end. We can forget, but remember, that allows us then to have the joy of remembering in this great cosmic game of peekaboo. And it's joyful to remember. Perhaps what this whole thing is returning to God. So it's just like, peekaboo, and you're like, ah! And it's just so we can do that one more time, then we'll do it again.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna close for us. If we can close our eyes, and if you're driving, don't worry about this. And let's just take a deep breath and receive everything that was transmitted here on this episode. My first episode. And the prayer is that whatever medicine was here for you, that you can take it into your heart and share it with all your community so that you can live a most beautiful life. And may Pachamama always, always support your life, support your path, and guide you. And may Taita Inti, the great sun, light and shine upon you. And may you play, play, play. Blessings, everyone.
Thank you, Xochitl. Check out her podcast. The link is below in the show notes. And always great to share new shows and new people and lift each other up. This song that you're hearing in the background is called Duet on the Ocean Floor. It's from the Burn album. And we actually just released a video for this that's animated. It was really fun to work with some animators to create this. It's on YouTube. You can see links on Instagram and socials, I believe. But the song, Duet on Ocean Floor. And please check it out. Hope to see you on the road. Thank you again to all of our folks on Patreon, patreon.com/eastforest. And you guys keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit, but if you do it with grace.